Okay, this is Critical Hit Discourse number 3 on the Lahkdi video. Anyways, we have some points that we want to address because we wrote them down ahead of time. That way this will be a little bit shorter for you, David. So we want to first address life in a sustainable way.
So just the idea that in the movie that we watched about how everything that the Lahkdi people used came from the earth and it all went back into the earth. So there was everything that was part of their lives they had acquired directly. So it came directly from the source, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And how I think kind of how mind-blowing that is in today's society, how that could be even possible, how everything you interact with you got from the earth. Because for us, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what that would look like. So I think that whole concept and the shift back towards that concept
is really important. And the same with, like, in just taking that even to something simple as where do you get your food? Where does food come from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't come from the grocery stores. It doesn't come from McDonald's. It comes from
it all
the
comes
earth,
from the earth, yeah.
Right? So I think that is a good way to go with it. And so the Lahkdi kind of Lahkdi community kind of portrays that in a really good way. Everything that comes out of it goes back to it, and it's just a circular view. I can't talk. Circular view, like kind of like the indigenous way of thinking. So, and then it was really sad to see how capitalism really affected their way of life.
And how, I mean, because I found myself being so angry at it, being so angry at the progress and how they're interfering with this. For us, like, for me looking at it, it's like that seems like a very good way to live, like the sustainable agrarian-based society. Like that seems like, I don't know why you would switch out of it, you know? But then I start thinking about progress, like the idea of progress. Yeah. And how that is attractive to a lot. That's why we live in a society that's so progress now. Like, it's a very attractive concept. It's just the long-term effects of different types of first world progress.
And that progress being like what we were talking about before is like romanticizing this thing that like you don't have to, it's ease. It's creating ease, and it's making things life a lot easier when you're actually working and you're being sustainable. It's hard work. And so yeah, of course, you know, driving to work is a lot easier than
walking to work,
biking, or you know.
Yeah.
So.
But then you look at why there's such high obesity rates, and people are getting so sick these days, and people are, you know, there's all these biological problems that
are coming out of the progress.
The lack of because we have to think so hard about active lifestyles, and having an active lifestyle is such a big thing today. Whereas, like in a sustainable life, being active is a must. You have to be active, otherwise you die. It's kind of like a survival of the fittest, or you're taken care of, or you're young. But like, you gotta be active. You gotta be able to do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And even still, like, even people are our progress is actually taking advantage of that fact as well. When you look at, you know, the gyms and the propaganda and everything, it's just ridiculous. Making money. It's just this constant.
That's the other comparison between the progress and the sustainable way of life. It's like, for them, I'm sure money wasn't even, like, not even a thing, you know? Like, you get money when, like, traders come in, but that's it. And that goes into our next one, which is how people used to help each other just on the basis of mutual understanding. And if someone needed help, everyone would pitch in. Because that would move the whole community forward. If someone's field needed to be plowed, like they said, like someone's fields for grain would feed the entire community for a certain amount of time. So it was in everyone's best interest to help.
Yeah, they would all benefit from it.
Yeah. And now it's
kind of like you don't even know your neighbors.
Yeah.
You don't even, to be honest, I don't know my bottom neighbor's even name, and I think I'm pretty good with introducing myself to people, but it'd be like awkward to ask for sugar.
Yeah.
So, it removes you from a community and more of like a family unit, or your own singular unit even sometimes.
Yeah, and then they compared it to the life in like modern Lahkdi, when they go into the town and they look for work, and they build these Oh, that was the other really cool thing. Sorry, I just got on a different tangent. So they were talking about the water and like the streams and stuff.
Yeah.
And how they were on a rotation system, so everyone's field would get the water. Like they would actively divert it to different farms. Like that's how integrated they were into the rotation system and the
helping each other.
Yes, so the next one is you were trying to talk about schools.
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring up the
Schooling and
schools. It
education.
kind of blew my mind. Like when I heard that kid reading the book about how capitalism was what was best and all these, I forget what he was talking about even, but I'm sitting there and I was just stunned with the fact that he's reading about how industry is going to help them and how, you know, all this stuff is helping them. But when you look at the Lahkdi, it's destroying their community, to be honest, and that these schools are not only, you're bringing them in, they're not only pulling them away from their family and their community where they're learning vital skills and sustainability knowledge. They're pulling them away from that, and then they're teaching them about all these, you know, the things that are best in a capitalist society, not necessarily for society, but for capitalist society. So I thought that was amazing that, you know, they're being put away from home with the idea that they're bettering society and they'll better their family and everything, but really they're making life harder for their family and they're destroying the community.
And it's a whole way of thinking. I mean, it's interesting to think the full cycle that the earth has come in. Like people, the first peoples lived off the land. They had to. They didn't have another choice. And like 50 years ago, the Industrial Revolution, there was, I mean, the Industrial Revolution was this huge thing, and then cars came, and everything was so exciting and new and progressive. And now we've kind of come in a full circle where it's like, we need to go back. Like you can't go back in time, but you need to think about how we're going to keep moving forward with kind of where we've gotten with technology and everything. And progress.
Well, and then look at our successes, right? Like, and we have to look at, back to the school thing, is like, look at what success is, what, and even success within our economic state, right? Like, what is success? Like, that our buildings are growing taller and that, you know, we might be creating more jobs for people, but we're destroying the environment. Or is success being learning skills and giving back to our environment and creating a society where everyone will be able to live in years to come, like not necessarily in the now, but for the future.
When you look at it as teachers, like the program that we're in and the courses we're taking are all learning how to prep our students to live in the world we live in today. When should we be prepping them for a world that they can live in? If that makes sense, you know, a world like be prepping them for, like it's like how the public school system is still rooted in the Industrial Revolution, whereas the future that we want for our students is not that. It's something more sustainable and more long-lasting.
Yeah.
So
that's something. Absolutely, I got this quote too, actually, that I got from David Orr's article that we read. With the education one? What is it called, Emma? Do you remember?
The one that we just read.
What is education for, or something like that? It makes more sense to reshape ourselves to fit a finite planet than it does to reshape the planet to our infinite wants. And I think that's like a really important quote to remember, because I mean,
it's a really good way of putting it, like really concise way of putting it.
Yeah, exactly. We want so much, but the planet can't hold that. You know, it's going to be destroyed. So we need to figure out how to live within it. So.
And then like the relative, like how in the video they talked about being poor, and how 20 years ago she asked him about poor people in the village, and he said like they didn't understand the idea of what poor is. And then 20 years later someone asks him and he says, oh, this is the poorest section of our village.
And then I have to think too about that is like, in what sense are you poor? You know, like in what sense are we rich? Like, yeah, we have things and we have this, you know, but are we happy? So like you got to look at the communities that like the Lahkdi that's supporting themselves and sustaining themselves. They're sitting around and they're sitting there and they're working, but they're also like building their relationships and having, I don't know.
And it's how society constructs success. Like, our society has constructed success into being having money and a job and
being educated
and having a nice
educated in
car.
the system. Mm-hmm.
Whereas for them in that community, being successful was making enough food for your family to live.
Well, and working together. I think success
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know, having a community to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Surviving would be success, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways. And then then the last point here was that the younger generations were being affected the most.
So kids who aren't aware of, haven't lived, they're kind of caught in this limbo between their parents who grew up with this like deep-rooted sense of community and an understanding of what community is and how you interact with people.
Yeah.
And now their whole way of life has been altered, so these kids are pulled into different directions, and that's really difficult for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's our job as teachers to, you know, educate both sides of it and kind of. Even me today, like we went to the dump for environmental education, and I mean that alone in itself was just an eye opener of, like I said to Emma again, I said, you know, I brought up what David you had said, and I said, it doesn't, like, I'm so angry looking around and seeing how much garbage we create and thinking about all the packaging that, you know, all the packaging comes in. And I'm like, but to be honest, like the thing is I cannot do anything about that until I do something about it myself. Like until I'm fully contributing and fully aware of what I'm doing to affect the planet.
So basically it's all very well, I mean, it's important to learn about communities outside your community, like the Lahkdi, outside of the world, but it's also really important to take it back. Like when you get sad about these people and this culture that's being lost,
what can I do about it?
Bring it back down to your level.
Yeah, don't make it so big. What is that quote? Think globally and act locally. It's totally.
And also, when we were watching the movie, I thought of something about the gross national happiness quotient, or not GDP but GHP. What's GDP stand for? Gross national product? No.
It's WGN.
Anyways, there's a country in Bhutan, which is in the Himalayas somewhere, and they have a gross national happiness quotient, and we actually measure the happiness of the citizens of Bhutan. It's really cool. It was I'll grab my book.
We should have had this prepared.
I know. It was actually instigated by two people from Victoria, and it is the gross national happiness. And it's to signal the commitment to building an economy that would serve Bhutan's unique culture based on Buddhist spiritual values. So it measures the population's well-being, and it is beneficial development of human society takes place when material and spiritual development occur side by side to complement and reinforce each other. And that was something I'd heard of it before, but the movie really made me think of it.
Yeah, and it goes back to that David Orr quote that, you know, you asked us to critically think about, you know, the quote where it's, we don't need more successful people, right? We need more storytellers, more lovers, more people who are, you know, happy. Anyway, okay, that's done.
Discourse 3.
Number 3.